Welcome to the 2026 Dialogues by Mangrove Breakthrough. Today's conversation is about building the global financial pipeline that mangroves conservation urgently needs, connecting investors, policies, and projects at a scale that can truly make a difference. Joining us today are three leaders at the forefront of that work. We have Ana Lucia Horta, Executive Director for Brazil at Capital for Climate, who connects international investors with high-impact conservation projects. Also, we have Chechi Pertus, Head of Policy at Fair Carbon, working to embed blue carbon ecosystems into a national climate policy. And Maria Claudia Diaz Granados, Senior Director at Conservation International, with deep experience scaling blue carbon solutions across Latin America and beyond. Our conversation will be guided by the Global Ambassador of Mangrove Breakthrough, Carlos Correa. But first, a few words from the Executive Director of Mangrove Breakthrough, joining us from France, Ignace Bogan. The floor is yours, Ignace. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be with you, albeit virtually. Hello, Chichi. Hello, Maclao. Hello, Carlos, Ana Lucia, and everybody connected. It's a pleasure to be with you today and to host this second webinar as part of this series around how to mobilize capital for mangrove investments. And this is, very much a theme that is at the core of the Mangrove Breakthrough. When we launched the Mangrove Breakthrough a few years ago, together with the Global Mangrove Alliance, the objective primarily was to really much elevate and position mangrove on the global scene and on the global agenda, right? And so for that, what we've done is to define a set of targets of collective ambition that can guide stakeholders towards more action towards this critical ecosystem. And that's why we've set two ambitious but realistic goals. We have to restore and protect 15 million hectares of mangrove by 2030. This is our collective ambition if we want to protect this ecosystem for all the benefits it provides when you think about carbon mitigation, adaptation to climate change, food security, health for local communities, and many others. But to achieve that, we know that we have to mobilize $4 billion by 2030. And this capital mobilization is very much what is at the core of what the Mangrove Breakthrough and its partners are aiming to do. And this sequence of two webinars that we have the pleasure to host and to organize with brilliant partners are aiming to dive into this issue of what does it mean to invest and mobilize capital for mangrove? How do you do it? And what is the current status of the pipeline? And we want to illustrate with tangible example from the partners, what does this mean? So in the last webinar, we have been deep diving into the context of Colombia to learn what type of financial instruments can be mobilized towards mangrove investments. So that includes, early on catalytic capital. We also heard an example from the microfinance sector, which is highly relevant, obviously, for local communities working and depending on mangrove ecosystems. And there was also a section around carbon markets. But we know that there are additional opportunities to invest into mangrove ecosystem, right? When you connect it with infrastructure projects, when you are able to mobilize capital through coastal agriculture or aquaculture. And there is ways to mobilize large-scale investment by connecting economic sectors and mangrove ecosystems. And this is what we are aiming to deep dive into with this segment around the pipeline, right? We need to be more context specific and granular if we want to mobilize capital towards mangrove ecosystem. Understanding the mechanics of what type of financial instruments we can use is critical, But when we engage with financial institutions, it's very clear that they also need stakeholders that are able to map, understand, analyze, and structure and prepare the pipeline of projects to absorb capital. So how is this pipeline looking like? What can we learn from existing projects? What role and how can we onboard communities? What type of capital can be mobilized through revenue stream related to carbon, to coastal infrastructure development, to agriculture, to aquaculture? This is what will be, analyzed by experts today. Wish you a really fruitful conversation. This is part of many years of work of the Mangrove Breakthrough, and we will continue to deep dive into this topic with partners like the Global Mangrove Alliance, like Restore, like Capital for Climate. Hope you enjoy the webinar, and we will always be available for follow-up conversation. Thanks to all the panelists for their time, and to my great friend and amazing colleague. Over to you, Carlos.
Well, thank you very much, Ignace. So nice to see you today, and greetings from Colombia too. So nice to see you connected, and congratulations for the great work that the Mangrove Breakthrough is doing. So the question here, and good morning and good afternoon to everyone. I know there's people connected from everywhere. So thank you very much for being here today. So the question we are here to answer today isn't whether mangroves are worth protecting. We know they are. The question is, how do we build a financial pipeline powerful enough to actually do it? How do we move money? How the Mangrove Breakthrough can work at scale with integrity into the ecosystems that sustain us. So now I'm gonna start with a video here, and then we will start with our colleagues.
¿Sabían que mientras ven este video hay una esponja gigante que limpia el aire, protege su casa de tormentas y pone comida en la mesa de millones de personas? Esa esponja existe y son los manglares. Mientras los bosques capturan el carbono en sus troncos, los manglares lo hacen bajo tierra, en el barro, como si lo escondieran en una caja fuerte natural. Por eso pueden almacenar hasta 5 veces más carbono que muchos bosques tropicales. Una sola hectárea del manglar puede guardar alrededor de 1000 toneladas de carbono. Esto es equivalente a lo que producen 212 vehículos de gasolina conducidos durante un año. Pero los manglares no solo enfrían el planeta, funcionan como un rompeolas vivo. Cuando llega una tormenta, un tsunami o una marejada, el manglar recibe el golpe primero y las comunidades detrás reciben mucho menos daño. Y hay algo más. 4.1 millones de pescadores artesanales dependen directamente de estos ecosistemas para vivir. Cuando el manglar está sano, hay peces, hay camarones y hay trabajo. Solamente de la pesca artesanal de camarones subsisten 1.5 millones de pescadores globales. Y según la FAO, hay cerca de 113 millones de personas trabajando en la pesca de pequeña escala. Los manglares son el ecosistema en el que viven y se generan gran parte de estos peces y camarones. Cuidar los manglares es cuidar los ingresos de millones de personas. Entonces, la pregunta no es si los manglares son valiosos. La pregunta es, ¿qué hacemos para protegerlos? Se los cuento en el próximo video.
Welcome back. And now, Chechi, let's start with you. I have a first question is, we're gonna get, like warming up, so we can go deeper into the conversation. So from your work in blue carbon policy, why do mangroves matter to your institution and to the broader mission of Fair Carbon?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Carlos, and thank you everyone for the invitation. It's an honor to be here. Well, as we saw in the video, mangroves are important, right? And at Fair Carbon, we consider that they sit at the intersection of climate, nature, and coastal resilience. We have no doubts of the different capabilities that they have, for example, to sequester carbon, which we know is roughly 10 times greater than terrestrial forests, and they provide livelihood for millions of people, and they play an important part on biodiversity, right? But despite that importance, mangroves are still disappearing at alarming rates. And at the moment, the degradation of mangrove is accounting for about 10% of emissions in their degradation. And if we don't stop that, then we can lose what we have remaining within the century. But for us, this is where the blue carbon, the high integrity blue carbon projects come at play, because they can mobilize finance into conservation and restoration, and also they can play that. We can decrease that gap that we have today between potential and reality. But in the voluntary carbon market, only 0.35% of the projects are participating in the voluntary carbon market. So to close that gap, we have identified different challenges, okay? Governance, technical capacity, but also financial aspects. And that's why we have been working to tackling these problems and these challenges. We have analyzed more than 20 countries' enabling conditions to understand how ready they are to host these projects. We built the Blue Carbon Academy to provide tools and knowledge to practitioners and to project developers. And we launched the Blue Catalyst Fund to decrease this gap between financial mechanisms and early stage capital. And bringing all this together helps to close that gap. So at Fair Carbon, we recognize not only the importance of the ecosystem itself, but also the capacity that it has to become a really actionable and scalable nature climate solution. So it can bring everything together.
Well, great. Well, we're going to be, talking a little more deeper about this carbon, blue ecosystems, projects like Vida Manglar, Maclau. So now here we are with Maclau, and I would like to ask you same question to you. Maclau, what role do mangroves play in your institution work in Conservation International?
Thank you, Carlos, and thank you for inviting me to participate to this important event. Thank you, Ignace. You are in France, so I'm sad that you are not here with us. But I'm here today on behalf of Conservation International. I am leading the Blue Carbon Ecosystem team inside that organization, but also on behalf of the Global Mangrove Alliance, because I am part of the national chapters and priority countries working group at that Global Alliance that was also initiated back in 2015, because we understand the importance of coastal ecosystems as key drivers for climate mitigation. So not only mangroves, but also seagrasses and salt marshes. Okay. Those three ecosystems are very important at a global scale. Right now, we started with the mangroves because they are, of course, part of our life. They are very important for communities, local communities that rely or depend entirely of those ecosystems. And we had at a global scale, better information, better data. We have mapped out where those mangroves are, how have we basically indirectly or directly destroying those ecosystems, and why that destruction is having an effect for our climate at a global scale. So at CI and with the Global Mangrove Alliance, more than 15 years ago, we start to focus our attention on those ecosystems to make sure that we can improve the conservation, but also increase the restoration of those ecosystems, and especially in places where we are losing day-to-day these areas, or where we have destroyed a large amount of these ecosystems. So that's why we started these global teams where I am part of to try to focus the attention on those ecosystems, but also making or innovating the way of we do the work with communities and we allow long-term financial strategies, which is, in my point of view, one of the key aspects. We cannot just do projects 1 to 3 year life of a project, but we need to maintain them in a long term, and that's the key for mitigation processes. And of course, as Chechi was mentioning, mangroves are very important for adaptation solutions, for food security, for coastal protection, and all these services, they need to be enhanced by the process that we do. That's why we are completely focused on mangroves and communities, and obviously nature-based solutions.
Well, great. So we're now talking about blue carbon ecosystems, blue carbon projects, then people, communities. MacLeod, you said that you were in Conservation International, but also part of the GMA, the Global Mangrove Alliance, and then you have been working very close to the Mangrove Breakthrough team.
Yes.
So it's amazing that all this great women leadership. Because now we're going to talk to Ana Lucia, that is in Brazil. So I'm very happy to have you here, Ana Lucia. Welcome to this webinar. I know that you are in Brazil today. And Ana Lucia has spent 2 decades asking one question: how do we move serious capital toward solutions that are both economically sound and environmentally transformative? So Ana Lucia, today you are the executive director for Brazil at Capital for Climate. And Ana Lucia is going to be with us in this spot. So I'm going to ask you, Ana, 3 questions in one. So I'm going to take my time to be very clear with the questions. So Ana, Capital for Climate operates as a platform, not a fund, not a developer, but something in between. Can you walk us through how that model works in practice and why that approach is particularly powerful for driving impact on climate nature? That's the first one. I'm gonna go to the second question. Mangroves have historically been undervaluated by financial markets, seen as cost rather than assets. What strategies are actually working to change that perception and attract private and institutional investors to mangrove and nature-based solutions? And the third one, that is very important too, it says the Mangrove Breakthrough has an ambitious global target, and Capital for Climate has the infrastructure to connect investors with high-impact projects. How do you see the platform specifically helping the Breakthrough achieve this goal? And what does the collaboration look like in practice? I'm sorry that I'm asking so many questions in one. I know you're going to be with us for a few minutes, but please take your time to tell us, what do you think about this?
Well, thank you for having me here, and thank you for this important work in connecting mangroves to NBS solutions in general. So Capital for Climate is an NBS accelerator. We do work to bring light to this nascent sector, that's nature-based solutions, and to organize the sector. Our role is to make the bridges, okay? And we do have an NBS investment platform where we have many news, we have research, and we have deals ready to be connected. Mangroves are there, we have papers there, we have a few investment solutions, but we can have many more because this platform connects project developers, companies, asset managers, and funds willing to invest into NBS space. In what you just mentioned about mangroves being very relevant in terms of business, in terms of returns, but also being undervalued, that applies to all NBS solutions in general. And our work is to bring light to show that these are very good business and investment opportunities. And yes, we do have the infrastructure to connect. Again, the NBS investment platform is out there. Anyone, and I'm happy to connect, anyone can place a project in there. We'll do some screening, and it's free for users around the world. And an important role that we have in making this connection is on events, because we do believe that capital flows to where confidence exists. And in order to build confidence, we need the physical infrastructure, the software, and the engine behind it, but we need a place for people to connect. And that connection, the deeper that connection is, the deeper the confidence, and the easier it will be for investments to happen. So we do have, in a little over a month, actually less than a month, because it starts on May 19th, the Brazil Climate Investment Week. So the first day, it's a full day of panels and a few pitches and roundtables. And in parallel to that, a conference on oceans happening in São Paulo, where people have a chance to spend a day with a cocktail reception at the end and lots of opportunities to mingle. And then on the following day, Capital for Climate hosts a matchmaking event, bringing together companies, project developers, and investors in the nature-based solution space. And again, mangroves is indeed underrepresented. And it's our collective job, Capital for Climate and Mangrove Breakthrough, to enhance that connectivity. And then we go on a few field trips. This year, we don't have any field trips going to mangrove solutions, but hopefully in the following years we'll have. Because I fully agree with the video that you showed. People don't know how relevant mangroves are for the world, for the planet, and they know even less about the business and investment opportunities. And we are here to bring light into that and to make sure that investors know about this opportunity. That is a win-win opportunity. So in a nutshell, that answers your 3 questions.
And I hope, or we hope, that we can go on this field trip next year, maybe to Brazil. I don't know, maybe to Pará. Pará has the 80% of the mangroves of Brazil. Yeah. And Brazil is the second country in the world. So maybe next year we can see you in person there, or maybe at COP
next year, yes,
in October in Istanbul. So Anna, just before you leave, I'd like to ask you something that you just referred to. You were talking about investors. So for investors or institutions in our audience who are ready to move, we're always talking about call to action. So they're ready to move. What's the first concrete step they should take to engage with Capital for Climate and start putting capital to work in mangrove conservation?
Well, 2 things. Go to our NBS investment platform and start digging there and looking for opportunities and looking for information. And do come to BCIW in May, because then they'll have a first-hand experience in connecting with the ecosystem, and they will see that many or most of these opportunities are very profitable. Okay, there are many profitable opportunities with very concrete and solid financial returns in mangroves and nature-based solutions in general. So they should come and see firsthand that this is real. This is happening now.
I don't know, Anna is leaving us now, so I don't know if Maclau or Chechi, you have any other concerns or any questions about these issues or reflections that Anna is giving us? Okay, Anna, so by the end of the webinar, we will have a lot of questions. We will be sending you some of them so we can share. This is the second dialogue of this year, and we're going to be talking a little bit more about this, the ground, field visits, the people, but also the call to action and the institutions and organizations that are ready to move. So thank you very much, Anna.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Well, We have heard why mangroves matter. I know, Maclau and Chechi, you know why matter, right?
Right.
Okay, so I'm gonna leave you with this short video, and then we will continue with Maclau and Chechi.
Piensen en un barrio sin escuelas. Puede haber niños hoy, pero no habrá futuro para mañana. Los manglares son eso, escuelas y guarderías del mar. Ahí crecen peces, camarones y moluscos antes de salir a océano abierto. Ahora imaginen este círculo. Si se destruye el manglar para construir un hotel, abrir paso a una carretera o construir una playa artificial, los camarones pierden su hogar para crecer. Sin camarones, los pescadores capturan menos. Con menos ingresos aumenta la presión para explotar aún más lo poco que queda. El círculo se vuelve una trampa. Esto ya ocurrió. En Ecuador, el 85% de las familias costeras dependen de la pesca y la recolección en manglares. Pero cuando se destruyeron grandes áreas para granjas industriales de camarón, solo el 0.6% de población local consiguió empleo en esas granjas. El manglar se perdió y el trabajo también. Pero hay otra forma de hacer las cosas. En países como Vietnam, pequeños productores cultivan camarón sin dañar el manglar, integrándolo al sistema. Los árboles filtran el agua, reducen enfermedades y mejoran la calidad del producto. El resultado, cosechas estables todo el año y precios hasta el 30% más altos gracias a certificaciones sostenibles. No es manglar o economía, es manglar y economía. Cuando el manglar vive, el trabajo también. Eso hacemos en Mangrove Breakthrough. Creamos alianzas en las que todos ganan.
Well, and now we are going to be here just having this great conservation. You know, I was just thinking about some friend of us that always is talking about the conservation without money and finance is conversation. So now we're going to have this conversation, and then we're going to be looking for some finance vehicles to invest in mangrove. So Chechi, I have a lot of questions for you, you know, and I'm going to be like asking maybe 3 in 1, just like Anna. But the first one is, I was just looking at your profile, and you're a scuba diver.
Yeah.
So you've been then in a coral restoration project. Have you been? Have you?
Yeah,
tried?
yeah. I have been in monitoring expeditions here in Colombia, so to check how the health is doing in coral reefs, but also in restoration expeditions.
Well, I love it because it's amazing to be there restoring, you know, and planting corals.
Exactly.
And in San Andres and Providencia had this huge project, 1 million corals for Colombia after the Iotas hurricane. So it's amazing, not only for you, but all of you that have the opportunity to go and do that. It's great. And how corals and mangroves are connected. So, Chechi, my first question is, then if you can explain to the audience, what is fair carbon? What do you do there? Because you haven't, you know, Isabel just introduced you, but we would like to know a little bit more about the organization. And then, given your policy work at Fair Carbon, much of your focus has been on integrating blue carbon ecosystem into national climate policies. So that's a little bit also connected to NDCs, right? National Determined Contributions. Great, because at the Mangrove Breakthrough, we have been working also with the policy team and working on NDCs. And what I see is that you have a lot of experience in this. And at the Mangrove Breakthrough, we share a similar vision, particularly around embedding mangroves and blue carbon systems into countries' nationally determined contributions, the NDCs. Can you tell us about some examples where we have seen real movement from ambition to actual policy adoption, and what made that progress possible? And then a second question is, how can policy diagnostics and targeted capacity building helps government unlock high integrity blue carbon? And let me tell you something. Actually, the Mangrove Breakthrough has already endorsed 48 governments, national and subnational governments, into this great and multi-stakeholder coalition. So tell us a little bit more about your experience with this.
Yeah, sure. So the first of the three questions is fair carbon. First, fair carbon, what we're doing. So we are a Swiss organization, a Swiss nonprofit organization, and we're aiming to tackle three big barriers on the voluntary carbon market for blue carbon projects. The first one is technical. So there's a lot of really unique information about blue carbon ecosystems and about blue carbon projects that need to have in order to participate in the voluntary carbon market. So that technical knowledge, we know that that information is all around. And what we did is that we built the Blue Carbon Academy, which is a free online resource, and is designed to help mostly project developers, but also practitioners. It's a really helpful resource. And the Blue Carbon Academy takes a project developer from Blue Carbon 101, so the basics, right, to and take them through all the process of what they need to do to take an idea, a project, and to take it to accreditation. And with all the information that is there, and all the modules are based on what Vera and Plan Vivo's requirements are, and we're integrating gold standard too. So that is one of the first barriers that we tackle, is the technical. The second is the financial barrier, and I mentioned previously that we launched the Blue Catalytic Fund, the Blue Catalyst Fund, and the BCF is here to tackle the early stage financial barriers. So projects, as one of the most difficult things that they have, is the high cost, and they cannot raise the money in the early stages. So the BCF is here to tackle that too. And then the third component is the policy, which is the one that I lead at Fair Carbon. And we identified that we don't know how countries are doing in terms of how ready they are to host these blue carbon projects, right? The different requirements that they have. So what we did is that we created the Blue Carbon Enabling Conditions Index to assess in a standardized way the countries. And we did this creating 12 questions into 3 categories. Like, I go into the methodology in a different space. But basically what we did with that index is that we can assess in a standardized ways how countries are doing and how ready they are to host these projects. So we analyze the national government requirements around authorization processes, benefit sharing mechanisms requirements, MRV, carbon rights, land tenure, and so on. So we created this to understand that. And we produced the enabling conditions country profiles, which goes into detail how ready countries are in terms of all these characteristics, right? And on top of that, we are also hosting something similar like this, webinar series, and we like to have conversations around different things. MacLeod has been part of it. Actually, in this week, we're going to have a webinar, and one of your co-workers from the Mangrove Breakthrough is going to be there. We're going to be talking about carbon and non-carbon market approaches. So we want to have these different conversations about policy, science, finance, and so on. And the Blue Carbon Policy Dashboard is another tool that we have developed. It's like a public service that we're doing, is that basically we are putting information out there about the enabling conditions, about how countries are doing in their NDCs, and some maps about how the market is growing, the voluntary carbon market. So that is going to be the first one. That's what everything that we are doing.
Yes. This Blue Carbon Academy.
Yeah.
So if I want to just go and learn about blue carbon, what should I do?
Just go into our website. Yeah. You can go to faircarbon.org, our website, and there you can just register to the Blue Carbon Academy. It's free. You can go on your own pace, go into the different modules, and that's it.
I'm going to try that because I'm learning the whole time from MacLeod. So the second one?
Yeah.
question?
And the second one, okay, the NDCs, I remember.
NDC.
Yes, it's how blue carbon ecosystems can be integrated into NDCs. Well, two things are important here. The first one is that NDCs, they need to be specific. So countries need to be clear about the targets for restoration, for conservation, which ecosystems. So we have here mangroves, seagrasses, and salt marshes. Okay, which one are we prioritizing? Over what time frame, and what are the measurable outcomes? That is like having a really clear action plan of what they are going to be doing on their NDCs. And we have been doing some analysis about this. We have seen progress. So on the latest NDC update, so the countries have been submitting their NDCs, right? And we analyze the current NDCs, and we have seen that mangrove targets, in particularly mangroves, countries are including targets about it more in adaptation than in mitigation. So that is a trend that we have been seeing. And about 16 governments now include mangrove targets in both adaptation and mitigation. So that is an important step that governments are taking, right? One good example, you ask about an example, I can think about two. One is Belize and one is Seychelles. And Belize, they produce the National Mangrove Carbon Stock Estimate, and they are taking all that information to inform their decisions about protection and restoration. And Seychelles, they have been leading things about seagrasses. So those two countries, I think they are like a good go to understand how they are building their NDCs. And the second important aspect is policies. So we do have the targets, but we need the policies to create those conditions that are needed, right? So for example, we need to have clarity around land tenure and these ecosystems. Mostly, for example, mangrove, they see that intersection between the sea and the land. So we need to have that clarity. Carbon rights, for example, if countries are going to be participating in carbon markets, either Article 6 or the voluntary carbon market. So you need that policy clarity, those enabling conditions in place in order to have those commitments actionable. And without those, I think that we cannot really move forward.
Well, I have about 15 more questions for you, but I don't know, we don't have the time, but we'll have a little bit of time later after MacLeod can have, in the introduction to blue carbon and some other issues that we are going to be talking here. But I have a last one, just a very short. You were talking about dashboards.
Yeah.
Are you working like with artificial intelligence or something, or it's like an Excel sheet or what?
We have a combination of things. So on the dashboard, you will find different maps. But the NDC one, we created a prompt, a step-by-step prompt, so AI could help us do the analysis how we need it. An amazing consultant did this work, and we have like an internal app to do all that analysis, and then we process that information because it's analyzing more than 100 PDFs, right?
Is it free? Can you share that prompt with us?
Maybe. Yeah.
Okay. We can talk about.
But that information is there, and people can actually download the results.
Okay.
Yeah, it's available.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you very much. So policy, markets, investment flows, these are the levers that, when pulled together, can actually move capital at the scale that we need. So now let's look at the heart of what the Mangrove Breakthrough is building, a global pipeline for the mangrove investment. I'm going to leave you with this video.
Proteger manglares no es una donación caritativa, es una inversión. Y como toda inversión, tiene varias puertas de entrada. Primera puerta, proteger la defensa del océano. Los manglares son guarderías naturales donde nacen el 75% de los peces y camarones que alimentan a las comunidades costeras. Cooperativas de pescadores triplicaron su pesca protegiendo el manglar y dejándolo recuperarse. Segunda puerta, negocios costeros inteligentes. Empresas pesqueras o turísticas que conservan manglares sufren menos daños por tormentas. Y además acceden a mercados que pagan más por productos sostenibles. Menos riesgo, más estabilidad. Tercera puerta, economías locales vivas. En México, comunidades que restauraron manglares generaron empleo en ecoturismo, conservación y pesca sostenible. El manglar dejó de ser un obstáculo y se convirtió en el centro de la economía local. Cuarta puerta, finanzas responsables. Bancos, gobiernos y fondos pueden dirigir capital hacia pequeños productores que trabajan con la naturaleza. No contra ella, sino reduciendo riesgos y creando un impacto real. Mangrove Breakthrough busca movilizar $4.000 millones para 2030, proteger 15 millones de hectáreas y asegurar el sustento para millones de personas. Proteger manglares no es caridad, es inversión estratégica. Cada hectárea apoya pesquerías que generan $37.500 al año. Evita hasta $850.000 en daños por tormentas y sostiene empleos para millones de familias costeras. No es solo proteger árboles, es proteger economías que producen más con menos riesgo. ¿Contamos con ustedes?
Well, and now we are here with Maria Claudia Diaz Granado. They call you Maclau, right?
Right.
Okay, Maclau. So thank you for being here. I was just reading about your bio here and said that you started your career in the Orinoquia, not in the sea, not in the ocean, just like very close to the Amazon. Okay, great. So working with river dolphins, otters, caimans, and manatees. Great. But it was there when you started your passion about this, right?
Right.
And now you are in the blue world. Well,
Right.
amazing. But you still go to the Orinoquia.
Yes, I still go to the Orinoco. I actually have a reserve. It's called Bojonavi Nature Reserve, so you are very welcome to visit it.
Okay, so we're going to Brazil next year to this field trip with Anna.
And then
we are going to the Orinoco.
Sure, why not?
A lot of things to do and field visits.
No mangroves there, though.
No mangroves.
That's fine. It's nature.
Then we'll go to the Pacific or maybe to the Vida Manglar project that
Yes,
we're
why
going to be
not?
talking about a little bit about this. Maclau, and then you have more than 30 years of experience in climate conservation, biodiversity, and also now you are a senior director of Blue Carbon and Conservation International. I would like to ask you three questions, maybe in one, and then we can have a conversation, and then we'll go to the closing remarks. So the Vida Manglar project, that is a project on the Caribbean coast in Colombia, has been a pioneer in the blue carbon credits market. How can this innovation be scaled and replicated both nationally and globally? And then the WEF, the World Economic Forum, highlights blended finance. There's a lot of people, many people talking about blended finance during these days. That's something like, it's not only philanthropy, right? There's more. So they have been, highlighting this as the key tool to accelerate blue carbon investments. How these structures improve the risk return profile and unlock private sector participation. And here it's worth noting that the private sector isn't only investment banks looking for financial returns. It's a much broader ecosystem of actors. So tell us a little bit more about this.
Thank you, Carlos. Yes. First of all, I would like to respond to you by saying that I feel very proud of us creating this momentum, us meaning this group of organizations, CI, but also WWF, TNC, IUCN, Wetlands International. When we created the Global Mangrove Alliance, no one was talking about mangroves. No one in the world. Mangroves were the forgotten ecosystems. It's not very, very full of mud, smelly, something that you should cut off. Basically.
How many years ago?
That was more or less 15 to 18 years ago. Now everybody wants to talk and wants to work with mangrove. So I'm feeling really, really proud of being part of this process and having the opportunity of leading and also being part of this coalition of institute, public and private institutes that have created Vida Manglar in Colombia as the first blue carbon crediting project that was approved by Verra using the VM0007 methodology. Because before there were other mangrove projects, RED plus projects, but using a different methodologies. And that methodology account the carbon that is stored in the soil. That's why Vida Manglar is so important and became an example for many processes, including high quality blue carbon principles, including also what Chechi was saying as well. So they have these online training course, but there are others around the world. The Blue Carbon Institute in Singapore, they are also offering this type of workshops, and not only workshops, but online trainings. The Ocean Teacher as well, led by UNESCO, and Invemar, for example, is promoting a lot of different trainings to make sure that everybody understands what blue carbon is. It's not only credits. Blue carbon includes ecosystems that are very efficient in sequestering and storing carbon dioxide in their nature and allow us to reduce the effects of climate change. But one way of maintaining those ecosystems is through carbon markets. And that's why Vida Manglar is becoming an example. Because we got the approval by Verra back in 2021, we were able to sell the credits at a premium price. And right now we are working together with the CBS, which is the local environmental authority, the National Resources Institute, the Omach Foundation, which is a national NGO that leads the communication or the relationship with communities, and also 14 community-based mangrove associations that are part of the governance structure of that project. So that project is still there. We were able to sell the first bunch of credits that we received. We are now going through the second verification. It's been challenging, and I have to say it. It's going to be hard to maintain these type of processes, and that's why blended finance it's a key pillar for us to maintain. So credits are one solution. Yes, you can have a long-term vision by getting some credits and be able to produce or have financial sustainability, but they are not going to fund everything that a mangrove project needs, because mangroves are, as you also mentioned, they are surrounded by communities. There are many activities that need to be funded. And if you see the carbon markets and the companies that are buying those credits, the amount of money that you receive is not enough to maintain the project. And that's why public, private donors and other type of funding mechanisms are needed to be sure that you have enough funding to maintain in a long term all the activities that you need for mangrove restoration and mangrove conservation. So blended finance is essential. And I forgot your third question.
Well, I had just two. I have three.
Okay.
No, because it's very interesting what you're saying about blended finance, about blue carbon, about education too. You were talking about this blue carbon or blue ecosystem. Let's talk about ocean and coastal ecosystems,
yes.
Right? And I was just listening to this blended finance reflection that you're doing, and I have a question, Markel. The Mangrove Breakthrough has a very ambitious goal of raising $4 billion by 2030. It looks like I always ask people, do you think $4 billion is a lot of money? Say, oh yeah, it's a lot. I said, no, it's not too much, because if we need $300 billion per year for climate and adaptation, and then we are talking about 4 billion in 5 years that are left. It's nothing, it's almost 0.4%. But now the challenge is how to unlock that money and how to use this blended finance and catalytic funds to achieve the goal. So what do you think, what needs to change in the current financing architecture to make that a reality?
Yeah, I think we need to change different things. So first of all, the way we are addressing these issues. So it appears that it's not a lot of money, but when you try to materialize and make sure that mangrove projects are effectively done using high quality principles, then that is not so simple. Because as you also said, mangroves are localized in the tropical region in the country, where we have the most populated areas and also the poorest areas, where there are a lot of limitations, not only in terms of administrating or managing those funds, but also because the majority of those populations are still relying on nature for survival. Let me give you an example. If you go to Africa, to West Africa, West African countries are the poorest in the world, and hence they rely on mangrove for cooking and for charcoal. They have to go log trees to go back to their houses and cook for food. There are no other ways of doing it. They don't have access to gas. They don't have access to electricity. They don't have access to other basic services. How can you make sure that they are going to do mangrove conservation and restoration effectively and efficiently by receiving funds if they don't have their own basic services fulfilled? So that's one example, and that happens in other geographies. I guess that West Africa is one of the worst examples because it's very complicated to work there. In the Americas, we have much more, we have greater capacities in local communities, but it's also very complicated. So we need to focus, or we need to have different ways of addressing those threats or those risks that we are seeing. And again, mobilizing this amount of money should be done in a very wise way to make sure that not only policies are there, so you have the enabling conditions at that level, but also you have to create the conditions in other like layers, more like on the ground, to make sure that they can absorb those amounts of money and they can deliver effectively and efficiently results on mangrove conservation and restoration for climate, of course, and for other services like adaptation. We don't have achieved that yet. So it's going to be complicated. It's not impossible, but we need to make sure that we have the ways of doing it. Going back to what you were saying, yes, I agree. The Mangrove Breakthrough has a very ambitious goal. Again, it's not impossible. That's why you have been working closely with the Global Mangrove Alliance. We have more than 100 members at a global scale with capacities, with skills, with projects on the ground that are able to help transfer or mobilize those funds into something concrete and on the ground. But still, it's not enough. We need governments, we need bilaterals, we need companies changing the way they are using those ecosystems, and also changing the way we are developing our coast. And I think that's one of the biggest threats that we are having. We need to work together with other sectors, not only with environment, but with infrastructure, development, ports, transportation. All of them should have a similar goal and a similar way of seeing how we are really developing our coastal areas to be able to conserve mangrove areas, but also other blue carbon ecosystems, and allowing us to mitigate climate change. So again, it's changing the way we are seeing this process or these problems as well, and capitalizing what we have with a different view, perhaps.
Great. We are running out of time, but this conversation is amazing. This is the second dialogue, so we're going to be talking about these issues and topics a little bit more ahead. So, MacLeod, just to close with a final reflection, I was just listening to you about other sectors. So we need to, you were talking about the GMA, Global Mangrove Alliance, other organizations, coalition, the Mangrove Breakthrough, the MAC, the Mangrove Alliance for Climate, and then the NGOs, more than 60 partners now from the private and different NGOs, 48 governments, national and subnationals, private sector, financial sector. But then we should look more to other sectors. You were talking about like shipping,
ports,
aquaculture,
yes,
ports, maybe ecotourism. All these are related to mangroves, and they need to have like KPIs,
yes,
towards the goals of the Mangroves Alliance.
Yes.
So just give us a final reflection to these organizations and the people that is connected now, and just to close and then to follow talking about this in the next month, because this year is COP31, and I think that we need, achievable goals, not pledges, just like I'm going to do.
Yeah.
We need to go to action now. So just a final reflection about this.
Well, I think that we have many things to discuss in this type of webinars and spaces. We have been trying to replicate the model of Vida Manglar everywhere, and it's been really hard. I don't think we have achieved that replication so far, but we are still trying to do it. Finding innovative ways of connecting blue carbon crediting projects with non-carbon market or non-market approaches would be ideal. So let's all together think a new way and an innovative way of maintaining these type of processes, which are usually very complex, including public and private stakeholders in looking at one similar goal. I invite you all to start thinking together and collectively and find a way to innovate. Credits are a good solution, but they are not the only solution.
It's not enough.
And it's not enough. The carbon market is there, but there are new requirements rising that are going to make very much difficult these projects to be implemented. I understand why those requirements exist and are going to be there in the near 2-3 years, but that's going to make very much difficult for projects, for blue carbon projects, to be only funded by those credits. So let's innovate. Let's think outside the box and find a way to collectively maintain these projects in a long term. That's my final message.
Well, great. Innovation, looking beyond
yes.
the different vehicle instruments that we have been working on. How can we build a new economy around the blue ecosystem? So now, Chechi, taking that into account, just give us these closing remarks, a final reflection for all of us.
That's a big responsibility.
Yeah.
Thank you, MacLeod. I think we definitely need to recognize more the importance of mangrove. I mean, we work on that every day, but not everyone does, right? So that is one of the first things is we need to continue spreading the word on the importance of blue carbon ecosystems, not only mangrove, also seagrass and salt marshes, how we can work together with them, with those ecosystems, and merging different approaches. And actually, you made me think about a potential conversation that we're going to be having about integrated mangrove aquaculture with blue carbon projects. So that is a conversation about innovation that we need to start having. So that is super welcome. And another important message that I would like to share is the different finance mechanisms, right? Investors need to understand the context. I think they should adapt a little bit their risk tolerance so they can participate in this sector, and they are required. And we need different solutions like the one that we're having with the Blue Catalyst Fund to try to de-risk the development of the projects. So it's a whole conversation about education, science, policy, finance, and everyone changing a little bit their behavior, including the investors.
Okay, and can you give us a prompt too for that?
Yes, of course.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chechi. Thank you, MacLeod. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Ignace, for being here today. And thanks to everyone that is connected. If you have any questions, you can just write it down in the chat, and we'll be, contacting you in the next days. And then I think it's possible. It's not only possible, but it has to be possible. Because we need to do it. We need to save and protect and conserve 50 million hectares of mangroves. That's what we have globally. It looks like a lot of hectares of mangroves, but it's not. And it's very important for biodiversity, for food security, for mitigation, the carbon capture, the storage, everything. The mangroves definitely are needed from people and for people. So thank you very much. And Isa, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Let's do it, Carlos. Let's do it. A huge thanks for Chechi Pertusa, Maria Claudia Diaz Granados for this conversation, and of course to Carlos Correa and Ignace for guiding it with such clarity and purpose. Thank you to everyone who joined us today. Mangroves are not just an environmental solution, they are a concrete opportunity to invest in resilience, in biodiversity, in the communities that live on the front lines of climate change, and in the future we want to build together. The Mangrove Breakthrough is that opportunity, so please join us, support the project, become a partner, follow our work, and stay connected. You can visit us in mangrovebreakthrough.com. Reach for us directly, see what's coming next. Of course, we can chat by that media. You can also follow us in our social media, and let's do this together. Thank you very much.